another Trump voter is admitting they got played. Now, this is not coming from TDS liberals, or anything like that. No, this is coming straight from the MAGA guys himself, a self-described enthusiastic libertarian Trump voter. Okay. Now, recently, this Trump voter named, get this, Morgan Morgus, which kind of feels like it's a fake name, honestly. But anyway, in this article in USA Today, they wrote, and I'm quoting here, quote, after a year after the presidential election, I feel completely swindled. Oh, do you? So just let that sink in for a second, okay? This is not some like deep state conspiracy liberal media hit job, okay? No, this is somebody who enthusiastically voted for this guy, saying that, oh, I feel swindled. And get this, they said if the same candidate ran again, if Trump ran again, well, they just sit out the election completely. Huh, no, well, that's what we call a ring endorsement for the Trump camp. Now, what makes this, of course, deliciously ironic, Morgus identifies, as I mentioned, a libertarian. This is supposed to be the people who want government. Get out of my wallet. Get out of my life. Get out of my bedroom. And look, the libertarians traditionally hate both parties, right? But especially hate anything that looks like big government or corruption, okay? A libertarian voting for Trump, I guess, kind of makes sense on paper when you think about it. Trump's whole campaign was about, oh, I'm going to drain the swamp, right? Reduce regulation, get rid of the regulations, cut taxes. The government that governs best governs least, But, of course, Trump has actually delivered something completely different than what he promised. And that's exactly why this libertarian voter, I guess, apparently feels like they got punked by the biggest con artist in political history. Remember, Trump talked a big game about cutting the federal government, right? I mean, Doge, another great example of that. But what do we actually get? We got a massive expansion of federal power concentrated in the executive branch, continuing the policies that drive up government spending, like more defense, and here's the kicker, Trump becoming something that, that he claimed to have hated, a big, bloated, inefficient government operation that serves only the donors. Oops. Now, Morgus put it more bluntly in his letter to USA Today. He said that Trump's conduct amounts to a, quote, complete betrayal of their vote. Again, not exactly vague disappointment here. Somebody saying that they were sold a bill of goods, and now they're stuck with it, while Trump and his billionaire friends laugh all the way to the bank. Now, he specifically mentioned that, hoping that Trump would be, quote, willing to listen to us. Right. Okay. Yeah. Look, the people thought that they were voting for an outsider who would actually represent them instead of the donors, but of course, Trump does nothing but represent himself and his donors, okay? They got the same old political elite bullshit who ignores their concerns unless it serves their own agenda or their billionaire benefactors' bank accounts. That's the reality. I mean, think about this, too, from a libertarian perspective, right? You vote for the guy who promises to get government out of your life, and then suddenly you get somebody who expands federal power in ways that made George W. Bush and the late Dick Cheney blush. If you're a libertarian who votes for Trump based on small government promises, yeah, makes sense that you'd feel like you got conned by the world's most obvious grifter. Now, the article also highlights another Trump supporter who was mad about Trump's handling of SNAP funding. He tried to stop people from getting their food stamps, okay? Their food assistance during the holidays. I mean, how evil do you have to be? Okay? Pretty goddamn evil, okay? Again, for 40+ million Americans, This voter pointed out that while Trump was investing in expensive White House renovations, i.e. the ballroom, that cost about $300 million, while he was getting that all put together, he was also simultaneously cutting food assistance to the most vulnerable Americans, including troops. Now, here's the thing. As a progressive, I'm going to have problems with libertarians, okay? And I'm also obviously going to have problems with the way that Trump handled food assistance, right? But if you're a libertarian, right, I understand why you'd be furious. Libertarians, they say they're not exactly against helping people. They just want private industry to do it, private charity, local programs. They don't want the federal government involved, right? Now, obviously, I'm going to disagree with that. It doesn't work. But Trump didn't even deliver on that promise, okay? Or any promises that small government. He just cut federal programs willy-nilly, man, while spending lavishly on his own comfort and that of his wealthy friends. And that's the problem. Because that's not small government, man. That is government that benefits the wealthy while hurting the poor and middle class. What's left of the middle class. Okay. And this isn't an isolated incident either. We're seeing a pattern here. All right. That Trump's own voters, supporters are like, I'm also starting to notice this. Kind of feels like I've been had worse than a used car, car salesman in Miami. That's not so good. I mean, you got these voters who thought that they were voting for like an outsider or something, somebody who'd stick it to the establishment. But instead, they got somebody who embodies the worst of the establishment, but with worse hair, and who falls asleep during cabinet meetings. Just saying. Look, the promise was there. Yeah, and true, he hasn't used that in a while. Drain the swamp, right? But most recently with Doge. We're going to cut the government waste. We're gonna reduce the deficit. We're gonna cut the budget, man. We're gonna focus on affordability. And what they got instead was somebody who expanded federal power, ICE, for example, when it benefited him and his wealthy donors, while cutting essential services when it hurt the most vulnerable. While he talked about fiscal responsibility, while running up massive deficits, and promised to fight for working Americans while implementing policies that primarily benefited himself and his donors. I mean, they're watching a con artist in action. And then the mark of that con starts to realize, oh no, I've been had. Because the promises do not match the reality. And of course, we warned you about that. And look, again, we warned you. We warned you. Okay. Now, what this tells us about Trump voters is actually pretty important as well. Okay. Look, I've even kind of talked about this. The narrative here that anybody who's voted for Donald Trump is either a racist or a fascist or an idiot who got duped. I think that's still mostly right, but you do have Trump voters, some Trump voters, who actually looked at his policy and were like, yeah, I've got legitimate policy concerns. That's why I'm going to vote for Trump, right? They wanted small government. They wanted, less corruption, obviously, and we all want less corruption. Actual representation. What did Trump do? He exploited those things, exploited those concerns in order to get their vote while having absolutely no intention of following through, which again, warned you about that. Morgan Morgus isn't upset because he thinks Trump was too conservative. He's upset because Trump wasn't conservative enough on the issues that matters to him, right? Or them. Didn't deliver on the small government promises. He got bigger government. He didn't cut spending. Didn't reduce the power of the federal government. He grew it. He just gave the same old Republican policies with extra corruption and incompetence thrown in. Okay? That's it. This is actually a case where political reality confirms what people like myself, progressive critics, have been saying for years. Trump talked a big game about being different while governing like a typical Republican who expands federal power when it's convenient and cuts it when it serves him or his donors' interests. And what we've seen here is a difference between the campaign promises and the governing reality. Trump ran on being a business outsider who would bring efficiency to the government. Instead, he brought out the worst of both worlds political corruption of traditional politicians with the absolute incompetent management style of a reality TV show that got canceled after a single season. Yeah. Now, again, the irony is that while progressive critics have been saying that Trump is a fraud for years, I know I have, even his own voters are starting to come to the same conclusion. But unlike progressives who saw through his con from day one, these voters actually bought into it. And now they're dealing with the harsh reality of having some buyer's remorse. Now, here's what this really represents, though. The moment when the mask finally slips off and people see Trump for what he is. And look, this isn't about partisan politics anymore, okay? This is about voters who supported this guy based on specific policy promises, feeling absolutely betrayed because those promises were never intended to be kept. Morgan said it best, that they feel completely swindled. Not the language of someone who disagrees with the policy outcomes. That's the language of somebody who realizes they have been conned by a master grifter who had never had any intention of delivering what he had promised. Now the question is now whether more Trump voters will follow this or, and realize that they got played, or whether they'll double down on the sunk cost fallacy and continue to support someone who has proven over and over again that he does not give a damn about any of them. Once again, I don't care about you. I just need your vote.